Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something called temporal analytics. It's a really powerful idea all about understanding not just what your data is right now, but what it used to be, and maybe, just maybe, what it's going to be next.
But before we get into all that, I want to ask you a question, a really simple one. Why do most of our data systems have amnesia? Seriously, think about it. The databases, the apps we use every single day, it's like they're built to forget.
And that right there, that's the core problem we're going to tackle. I call it the blind spot of now. You see, most systems are designed to show you one thing, and one thing only, the current state of affairs. And that creates some pretty big problems.
Think about it. You update a customer's address in your system, right? Or you change your product's price. What happens to the old info? Well, most of the time, poof, it's just gone, overwritten. And with it, all that critical context, the why, it just vanishes into thin air.
So what's the big deal? Well, when you erase history, you can't see the dominoes that fell to get you to where you are today. You can see what is happening, for sure, but you have almost no chance of figuring out why. The root cause is just lost in the fog.
And this is where it gets really dangerous. Because if you don't know your past and you can't fully explain your present, what does that make your future plans? It's a gamble, a total shot in the dark. You're making massive decisions based on incomplete intel. That's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so that's the problem. But what's the solution? What if we could give our systems a memory? What if we could actually let them see through time? Now that's where things get interesting. Just look at the market for a second. We've spent billions, literally billions of dollars, figuring out how to store massive amounts of data. You know, big data, data lakes, that's a solved problem. But what about a market for understanding how that data changes? The intelligence behind the flow of data over time. It's empty. Almost no one is serving it. And that is a huge intelligence gap. And that gap is exactly what our hero concept fills. This is temporal analytics. And it's not just about storing more data. No, it's about analyzing how data and the relationships between data evolve. It's like having a time machine for your business. You can rewind the tape, understand the present with full context, and actually model the future with some real confidence.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? A time machine for your business. But does it actually work? Let's get into the proof. Let's see how this takes a real company from total chaos to crystal clarity.
All right, case study number 1. Picture a huge parcel delivery company in a major bustling city. Before they made a change, their day-to-day life was, well, it was pure chaos. Just constant, predictable disruptions.
You know what I'm talking about. A big concert downtown, a street festival, a major football match. For them, that meant guaranteed, unpredictable delays. The team was just constantly putting out fires. And the worst part? Their systems had amnesia. They'd learn something from one event and completely forget it by the next one. They had zero visibility into the patterns. But then, they implemented a temporal solution, and everything changed. They moved from firefighting to what you could call predictive route intelligence. Suddenly, they could see the patterns. They could learn from last time. They could actually plan ahead.
And the results? Whoa. First off, a 76% drop in missed deliveries. I mean, just think about that. That's a massive win for customers, for their reputation, for everything. And behind the scenes, operationally, that meant a 68% reduction in manual interventions. People weren't scrambling to fix things anymore, because the system was now smart enough to anticipate the problems before they happened. It freed up the team to do actual, valuable work.
And the bottom line, the number that really matters to the business, over 3.2 million euros in annual savings. That's not just an improvement, that is a complete transformation, a massive ROI.
Okay, so that's logistics. Let's ramp up the stakes even higher. Let's talk about aviation. Our next case study is a major international airline, and their old planning process was, well, it was painfully manual and incredibly complex.
Get this, they were scheduling flight crews using spreadsheets. So if they needed to make a change, it took them 48 hours to figure it out. 2 full days. They had no way to track pilot certifications in real time, and managing pilot fatigue was all reactive, which in aviation is an absolutely massive risk. But once again, by making their data time-aware, they flipped the script. They moved to a model of predictive flight operations, and it completely transformed not just their efficiency, but their safety too.
So, what were the results here?
Remember that 48-hour rescheduling nightmare? They cut that time by 73%. What took 2 days of manual agony now happened almost instantly. That's a game changer.
And the financial impact of that new speed and agility? It's staggering. We're talking $8.7 million in annual savings, all because they could reduce delays and manage their crews way, way more effectively.
Okay, so we've seen the proof in two very different, very high-stakes industries. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about the bigger picture, the real potential. How does this unlock a genuine strategic advantage for your business?
So how does the magic actually happen? You might think it's super complicated, but it boils down to a pretty straightforward 3-step process. First, you've got something that connects to all your existing data sources. We'll call it alchemy. Then, the heart of the system, Aurora, doesn't just store a snapshot, it logs every change as an event over time, creating a perfect timeline. And finally, a visualization layer, let's call it Astral, lets you actually see and play with that timeline. So connect, store the history, and visualize. That's pretty much it.
And once you have that in place, the possibilities are just huge. You can modernize old, clunky systems without a painful rip and replace. You can create perfect, unchangeable audit trails for compliance. You can give your AI the historical context it needs to actually be intelligent. You can run powerful what-if scenarios. You can even build digital twins of your entire operation, like super fast.
And look, this table just lays it all out in black and white. The old way? You're stuck with stale, batched data. Development takes forever, like 12 to 18 months, and your operational costs are through the roof. The temporal approach, you get real-time data, you can build new things in 3 to 6 months, and you can cut your operational costs by 40, 50, even 60%. It's just a completely different league.
So all of this brings us back to that first question, and it's the one I want to leave you with today. I want you to really think about your own business, your own team. Ask yourself this: what critical history are you forgetting every single day? And what incredible opportunities could you unlock if you could just remember?